The following video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Behind every massive breakthrough in artificial intelligence is a strict physical limit. To build a superbrain, you have to wire thousands of high-speed chips together. But as data travels down copper wires, the electrical pulses degrade. If that signal dies before reaching the next chip, the entire system stops working. Historically, manufacturing the physical parts to fix these kinds of hardware problems is a tough business. You have to build expensive factories, manage complex global supply chains, and typically settle for razor-thin profit margins. But then there's Astera Labs. They build the specialized plumbing that catches these dying signals and brings them back to life. Yet despite selling physical hardware, they operate with a gross margin around 76%. That is a level of profitability usually reserved for elite software companies. This chart compares the key players in the AI infrastructure chain. Look right at the top. The market has rewarded Astera's unique financial profile with a massive valuation, trading at roughly 100 times next year's expected earnings. How does a company fixing short-range copper wiring command such an enormous premium? To understand if they've built a durable empire or just a temporary band-aid, we have to look inside the racks. First, Astera sidesteps the traditional costs of manufacturing entirely. They are a fabless company. They engineer the chip designs and then pay outside specialists like TSMC to physically print them. This lets them monetize pure intellectual property. That intellectual property solves a specific math problem inside modern data centers. To train complex AI models, operators pack a record volume of GPUs into single, towering racks. As these chips get crammed closer together and process data faster, the copper wires run much hotter. At these extreme speeds, the electrical signal degrades faster than ever. This is where Astera's flagship product, the Aries Retimer, steps in. It listens to the dying signal, reconstructs a fresh copy, and sends it on its way. Because these retimers are mandatory to keep the high-speed data flowing, Astera's revenue scales directly with every new GPU that NVIDIA or AMD ships. While point-to-point connections establish the business, Astera is now expanding into complex traffic routing. They've introduced the Scorpio switch. Instead of a chaotic web where every chip needs a dedicated wire to every other chip, the switch routes traffic through a clean, centralized hub. Any GPU can talk to any other GPU in a single hop. Controlling the switch establishes Astera as the foundational communication platform for the entire rack. And embedded deep inside every piece of that hardware is the real driver of their valuation, a free diagnostic software called Cosmos. Cosmos acts as a control center, monitoring the health and telemetry of every single link in the server. Think of it like NVIDIA's CUDA. While CUDA locks in the developers writing the AI software, Cosmos locks in the engineers physically operating the data center. If a manager wants to switch to a cheaper hardware competitor, they have to rip out their entire diagnostic nervous system. For operators running billion-dollar facilities, that switching cost is a risk most simply won't take. Of course, a 76% gross margin acts as a beacon for competition. Aggressive, founder-led challengers are fighting for space inside these racks. While Astera currently dominates the retimer space, a competitor named Credo has built a stronghold in active electrical cables and is now actively expanding to compete head-on in retimers. Look at their financial momentum. Astera's revenue is growing at roughly 100% year-over-year, but Credo's recent growth accelerated to 150%. Despite Credo's momentum, the market assigns drastically different multiples. Investors pay roughly 38 times earnings for Credo, while paying nearly double for Astera. This forces a hard question for investors. Is the market rationally pricing in the strength of Astera's software moat, or blindly underpricing a hungry, faster-growing competitor? But the ultimate threat to Astera isn't Credo, it's the laws of physics. The industry is approaching a strict physical deadline around 2027. As data connection speeds double, copper wires will soon completely fail to carry signals across even a few inches of circuit board. To keep scaling, the industry must abandon electrical pulses and switch to transmitting light via fiber optics. Astera knows this transition is coming. They are already acquiring optical technologies, like high-density fiber couplers, to prepare their product line for the jump. Astera Labs has masterfully capitalized on the copper bottlenecks of the current AI boom. But their long-term survival relies entirely on whether they can pivot their electrical empire to the speed of light, before the physics of copper leaves them behind.